Hebrews. This is our Prophets of Awakening. It's our Evening Sabbath class, the 2nd of April, 2022. I'll be reading out of Jasher chapter 2. I read Jasher chapter 1 this morning. So I'm asking everybody to like and share, subscribe to this channel, Prophets of Awakening channel. Hit the notification button. And for those that don't know, it's a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh is the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses on Mount Sinai by our Redeemer, the Lord of Hosts. I want to say shalom and welcome everybody to the channel, Prophets of Awakening, and welcome to our Evening Sabbath class. Okay, we're going to do our moment of silence and our prayer and the songs and the current events and then need to know information. Then we'll go in now. Okay. So with that being said, do our prayer. Oh Lord, we thank you for your great mercy and for your great power and wisdom. We tarry, waiting for your powerful deliverance of your people Israel. Oh Lord, you have given us insight into the scriptures of our forefathers, and you, oh Lord, has directed us to who you are in your role in the goings on of heaven and earth. We come at the end of your Sabbath day, doubtless that you will appear and that you will gather your nation from among these wicked Gentiles. Oh Lord, you spoke through your prophet Isaiah and said that you would help Abraham's seed, and that you, oh Lord, and that you have done, oh Lord. You have completed that promise as of this day. You said, oh Lord, that you will remove the darkness from around us. Tarry not, oh Lord, for the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for your deliverance. Peace be on you. Okay, I'm going to read a song. Okay. Okay. I'm going to read okay. I'm going to read Psalm 112. Blessed is the man that fear the Lord. Praise you, the Lord. Blessed is the man that fear the Lord, that delighteth greatly in his commandments. His seed shall be mighty upon the earth. The generation of the upright shall be blessed. Wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his righteousness endureth forever. Unto the upright there riseth light in the darkness. He is gracious and full of compassion and righteous. A good man showeth favor and lendeth. He will guide his affairs with discretion. Surely he shall not be moved forever. Righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting in the Lord. His heart is established. He shall not be afraid until he see his desire upon his enemies. He hath dispersed, he hath given to the poor. His righteousness endureth forever. His horn shall be exalted with honor. The wicked shall see it and be grieved. He shall gnash with his teeth and melt away. The desires of the wicked shall perish. Okay, that was Psalms 112. Blessed is the man that fears the Lord. Anybody get anything out of that? Anything ring a bell? Okay. So it says in verse 5, this is Psalms 112, a good man showeth favor and lendeth. He will guide his affairs with discretion. Surely he shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting in the Lord. His heart is established. He shall not be afraid until he see his desires upon his enemies. So we see right here what I was talking about this morning, about how understanding the power that's going on and who you're dealing with, and you don't give fear. It's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is probably a prime example there. When the evil tidings came, their heart was fixed, trusting in the Lord. They told the enemies or their oppressors to do whatever it is you're going to do, because whatever you do, you're going to do something else. We know that. So that's how they go. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go to our current events. Anybody got any current events they want to bring up? Okay. We got a couple right here. Okay. Okay.
What goes around comes around, sometimes in the form of a frisbee, sometimes as a haunting nightmare, and sometimes in the form of a long, long bill. The Queen of Britain will soon receive one. It will be from Jamaica. The Caribbean country is asking the British Queen to cough up billions. What for? As reparations for slavery. Quick background. Jamaica was a British colony from 1655 to 1962. The colonizer introduced sugarcane cultivation in Jamaica, and to support it, Britain introduced slaves. People were stolen from their homes and forced to work in the field. Many were shipped across to other countries as part of the transatlantic slave trade. In 1662, there were 400 slaves in Jamaica. By 1734, the number became 86,000. Between 1702 and 1749, nearly 300,000 slaves were imported to Jamaica. More than 100,000 were exported. It was only in the year 1807 that the British Parliament abolished slave trade. And it abolished slavery in 1837. By then, Britain had abducted and enslaved at least 12.5 million people. 12.5 million people enslaved. Many of them were Jamaicans. In 1833, Britain paid off 46,000 British slave owners. They were given 20 million pounds, almost 40% of that time's annual budget. What was this money for? To compensate for the quote-unquote loss of human property. What about these human properties themselves? What did the government give them? Forget compensation. Did Imperial Britain even offer an apology to the slaves and their families? The legacy of the slave trade still stings Jamaica. The country has been asking for justice for some time now. In 2015, then British Prime Minister David Cameron visited Jamaica. Jamaican leaders asked his government to pay reparations. Cameron was told to atone for the historical sin. The Prime Minister refused to even offer an apology. Here's what he said instead. David Cameron told Jamaica to move on. Reports published around that time revealed why he may have been so anti-reparation. Turns out one of Cameron's own family members was among many slave owners to have received compensation for loss of slaves. Jamaica did not give up its fight for justice, though. The Culture Minister recently said, and I'm quoting, "We are especially pleased to announce that we have made further steps in our strides towards seeking reparatory justice for the victims and descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. The petition is being presented to the Queen of the UK and or the government of the UK." Now, we don't know how much Jamaica is asking for exactly, but here's what we can tell you. Britain has a history of denying reparation. In 2014, a coalition of 15 Caribbean countries presented a compensation plan to the UK. They wanted reparation for slave trade. A YouGov survey at that time found that 46% of the respondents in the UK opposed reparations. What about the government? The Foreign and Commonwealth Office said reparations are, quote-unquote, not the answer for the legacy of slave trade. They are then asked, what is? What's the answer for the legacy of slave trade? After the Second World War, Germany was made to compensate for the damages. In the years since, several companies have had to cough up money for oil spills, for nuclear power plant leaks, for gas leaks, for accidents. And here we are talking about millions of people being abducted and enslaved, but Britain refuses to atone for its inhumanity. And FYI, reparations for transatlantic slave trade could add up to $14 trillion. Of course, the UK refuses to pay. Just like it refuses to return stolen goods. Be it India's Kohinoor or Ethiopia's bankrupts. Treasures from British colonies decorate the crown and its properties today. They hang on the walls of its museums and palaces, and the UK sees nothing wrong with any of this. It feels no shame or the moral obligation to at least be apologetic, to at least apologize for its historic blunders. Today, Jamaica is setting a trend. It is asking for compensation for historical wrongs. Compensation it is entitled to. Compensation that 54 Commonwealth nations are also entitled to. The Great Britain ruled them all, looted them all. You see, the British Empire was the largest the world has ever seen. It ruled over parts of Africa, Asia, America, Australia, and New Zealand. It squeezed all of them. From Africa, it abducted, trafficked, and enslaved people. Stole Benin bronzes. From Greece, it stole Elgin marbles. From Ethiopia, manuscripts. And from India, it drained $45 trillion. It is time for reparation. And while the world comes together to make China pay, it must not forget to also demand accountability from the British Crown. WION is now available.
Okay, any comments on that?
That's something. That's huge right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Notice what the deal was, that's the biggest empire ever.
Right.
You know, who know that? You know, Rome didn't even really extend that far into Africa like Great Britain did. They were dealing with Egypt, but they weren't dealing with the whole of Africa like Europe was, like Britain was, and still is. You know, so yeah. Ain't there something? Yeah. So.
What do you think the Queen gonna do?
Well, like I said, it's gonna be China. They like she was saying, they ain't got no intentions on giving us nothing. They know the repercussions of giving us something. They know that. Is there something? So let me go in on this. We're dealing with this some need to know information. Pretty much tied to the same thing. Just another group of Edomites. Here we go. Just some need to know information. Can you see that?
If to think that people are either rich or not. On the contrary,
there are several types of wealthy people who have different characteristics and lifestyles. First, there are the Kardashians, Drake, Beyonce, Cristiano Ronaldo, and other famous stars, who manage to acquire their wealth through their talents. Also, there are the Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk types of wealthy people, who earned their riches through hard work, innovative thinking, and technology. Finally, some like Walton, Mars, and Koch gained their vast fortunes through family businesses and investments. Then there are the Rothschilds, the richest family in the world. Indeed, they're in a league of their own, and no one can come even close to their colossal wealth. Their vast fortune has inspired hundreds, if not thousands, of conspiracy theorists, who are adamant that the Rothschilds are the ones controlling the world. I don't know about that, but if the Rothschilds are not controlling you at the moment, and you are interested to find out more about the luxurious lives of the richest of the rich, hit that subscribe button, if you already haven't, and ring the bell to get notified every time we upload a new video. The Rothschilds weren't always surrounded by luxury and wealth. Their story has a humble beginning in the Middle Ages, when they lived in the Jewish ghetto of the German city of Frankfurt. The family name comes from their ancestral home. Back then, houses weren't designated by numbers, but by symbols above the door. Rothschild's home had a red shield, which in German, with the old spelling, is Rothschild. In 1769, the Rothschild patriarch Mayer Amschel Rothschild was hired by the Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse. Once the young prince came into power in 1785, he appointed Mayer to manage his kingdom's finances as a court Jew. While such a position will be highly offending today, during this age, it was one of the highest honors a Jewish person could have in Catholic-dominated Europe. Every wealthy aristocrat had a court Jew, whom they entrusted with managing their money. The Bible forbade lending money in exchange for profit. While most aristocrats had the moral compass of a drunken chimpanzee in a brothel, they needed to keep their God-obeying appearance, or they risked losing not only the respect of their peers, but their lands and wealth as well. Many Jews, like the Rothschilds, saw this as an opportunity to gain vast riches. With the money he earned, Mayer quickly managed to open a bank and send his son Nathan to London. This helped Mayer transfer Wilhelm's fortune in London during the Napoleonic Wars, and even financed the British in their fight. After the Napoleonic Wars, Mayer's other 4 sons opened other banks in Paris, Naples, and Vienna. They predominantly helped aristocrats in their time of financial crisis. They lent huge amounts of money to the countries where they had financial capital in exchange for handsome interests in times of war or when whole countries were on the verge of bankruptcy. So, it turned out that Rothschilds were funding and profiting from every war during the 19th century in Europe. And believe me, there wasn't a shortage. Financing both sides in a conflict, causing devastation and misery, is not the definition of ethical, in my humble opinion, but no one can argue with the result. Today, the Rothschilds' vast fortune is the topic of just as many myths as there are stars in the sky. Some sources claim the wealthiest family owns about 500 trillion US.
Breaking scientific research shows that there's an everyday vegetable that...
Okay. Any comments so far? Nobody have no comments so far? Okay. Let Mo play.
However, not just hard to believe, but practically impossible, since the whole world's capital is estimated to be around 1 to 2 quadrillion. So a family controlling quarter to a half of the entire world's money is beyond crazy. Most sources estimate their wealth at around 500 billion to 1 trillion USD. That's about 2 to 4 times more than the following wealthiest individual, Elon Musk. Although the primary source of the Rothschilds' fortune are their banks, over the years they've branched out in mining, transport, real estate, art, and stocks as well. They have a minority share in the Suez Canal, and legend says they have 30% shares in all major banks worldwide. While I highly doubt the latter, the Rothschilds clearly won't end up leaving under the bridge anytime soon. The Rothschilds' lifestyle is shrouded in mystery. They are experts in hiding both their true fortune, which may be bigger than the whole Southern Hemisphere combined, and their personal lives. Nonetheless, from time to time, we can have a glimpse of the extravagant life they lead behind closed doors. Unlike many pop stars, the Rothschilds don't waste their money on flashy and fancy items that hold little investment value. Most of their purchases have one task and one task only: to bring them more money over time. They have a vast collection of art and are one of the most significant contributors to art museums around the world. For example, among many other things, they donated the $40,000 worth 4th century Lycurgus cup to the British Museum. During the Nazi occupation of France, around 3,500 works of art were taken from the Rothschilds' estates, as Hitler himself came to take his pick from the prized possessions. After the war, most art pieces were returned, but some remain unfound up to this day. The Rothschilds are probably the biggest gold owners in the world. They don't simply have the precious metal, but have shares in gold mines as well. Unlike some extravagant narco boss's children, though, They don't have golden cars or AK-47s, but gold bars, tons and tons of them. Recently, Jacob Rothschild exchanged massive amounts of British pounds and USD with gold, which many financial experts read as troubling for the Western economies. Now about 8% of Jacob's assets are in gold. The Rothschilds have probably one of the most extensive portfolios in real estate in the world, with mansions, estates, chateaux, and villas from the United States to Israel. Their properties can be the envy of any royal family. They have over 13 lavish manors in Buckinghamshire alone, each one worth well over $10 million. Waddesdon Manor is probably their crown jewel, which is open to the public. Over 450,000 people visit this lavish home to take a glimpse of Rothschild's lifestyle and class. The family is believed to have $20 to $25 billion worth of real estate around the world. Recently, the family sold a piece of land as large as Manhattan in Austria for a cool $112 million. Well, of course, some luxury purchases aren't precisely investments. For example, Nat Rothschild bought a super yacht worth over $100 million. The Planet 9, as the yacht is called, can accommodate 16 guests and the crew, consisting of 26 people. Two Caterpillar engines push the large ship with up to 16 knots. The yacht has a helicopter deck as well, for guests to arrive and leave as they please. Nat is the proud owner of an ultra-expensive deluxe private jet worth more than $60 million. The Bombardier Global 6000 is one of the priciest planes on the market and can accommodate up to 14 passengers in an ultra-luxurious setting. Nat's purchases, however, fade compared to his extravagant great-granduncle's purchases. Walter Rothschild remains one of the most thriftiest Rothschilds up to date. With his passion for zoology, he spent immense amounts of money purchasing exotic animals, like a giant tortoise, hundreds of birds, and even zebras. The eccentric billionaire trained 3 zebras to pull his carriage around London. Walter established the biggest collection of specimens the world has ever seen. He sold his bird collection to the American Museum of Natural History in New York in his late years. After his death, the rest of his phenomenal collection was donated to the Natural History Museum as well. What happened to the zebras, I have no idea. Although I'd guess they died of embarrassment long before Walter. The Rothschilds are most famous for the conspiracies they inspire as early as the 18th century. Their vast wealth is responsible for numerous anti-Semitic myths during that period, like how Jews controlled the world's money. The family is associated with the Illuminati, the New World Order, the five-dimensional lizards that control the world, and dozens upon dozens of other insane theories.
Okay. Any comments? Anybody ever heard of the Rothschild?
Yeah. He had a mission. You know, he may have started out in the ghetto, but he had a mission.
Yeah.
And he fulfilled it too.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy today. I was on Clubhouse. Said that the Israelites is white. Is that something?
Where he get that from?
That's what I told him. I said, "You got your wires crossed, bro. You told. If you call yourself a Moray, you need to hang that up." Oh yeah. Crazy, man. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna open it up right now for some Q&A. Anybody got any questions, comments about anything that we dealt with last week, something they came across, or this morning? Okay.
I just want to make a little comment on, what you said about, the guy saying that, they are the Israelites, right?
Right.
And I think they go off a lot of what they watch on TV.
Right.
You know, today on YouTube, I was watching, you know, some different commentaries on the prophets, and, you know, all of them are either, I want to say maybe Arab or white or whatever. We're not in any of those stories.
Right.
And so they truly believe that they are the chosen people, you know, versus reading exactly what is in the Bible.
Right. 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 So like I was telling him, he talking about scholarship. You know, they want to be all fitting and proper and you know, exact, talking about scholarship. If you when you understand what happened to Israel, the Most High cast them off. So he was behind the fact that the remembrance of Israel was gone from the planet until recently he started waking us back up. So you're not, when you talk about scholarship, you're talking about their scholarship. Like I said, he wants to go back to the founding fathers, and then he mentioned Josephus and that. So I asked him, you know, who is Josephus? You know, you so adamant about the fact that Israel ain't, you know, black Americans, you know, African Americans in America ain't Israel. Israel ain't black, you know. But you don't even know the history. You know, you don't even know the history on the book, and you can't start when you're trying to identify the Israelites. You can't start with in America. You got to start where we came from. We was brought over here. You got to do our history from where they brought us from and trace that back. That's how you're gonna find out who it is. Right? You can't call them. It's just like the Europeans. They over here in America, but they ain't come from here. But they had a luxury that their history ain't been tampered with. They can go back to Europe and find out exactly where they came from. You know, down to the house they great grandfather lived in and all that. They can do that, but we can't do that. You can't determine who we are by say African American. That's a name that was given to us. You got to go back over there to that part of the country. You can't deal with that conversation or address that conversation from over here. Yeah, it's crazy.
True.
Yeah. He wants to keep on talking about African American. No, I'm talking about African American. That's a bullshit ass term they gave us. You're not gonna trace who we are by going by African American. We ain't no African Americans. Yeah, so like I said, you know, how you gonna win, bro? You get your wires crossed. Anybody that has any kind of understanding of the scriptures, I mean, you sound like a madman, a nutcase. Yeah. Ain't that something? So we're gonna look at this right here. You know, we're gonna bounce off what I was just talking about. Check this out. Then I'm gonna read from just chapter 2. Okay.
Break their sacred pillars and burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods, and civilization on the planet practices some form of worship. Is it important how a person worships? Is there a correct way? We can all come up with different answers to these questions. As Christians, we must understand that worship is the most important thing we can do.
So what we're dealing with is who is Baal, and why was the worship of Baal a constant struggle for the Israelites? And so we'll see right here where a lot of our problem came from this right here.
We must worship God correctly, whether in public or privately, and His Word teaches us how. Beginning in Deuteronomy 12, we see Moses give the children of Israel specific instructions on how to worship correctly. 1. The right place. First, Moses drew the people's attention to the distinction between places of false worship, plural, and places of true worship, singular. we immediately recognize a suitable location for worshiping the Lord. The religions of the Canaanites were morally corrupt and socially destructive. Temple prostitution and even child sacrifice were among them. They had many other gods and worship locations, including the mountains, in addition to their two main gods, Baal and Ashtoreth. Deuteronomy 12, verses 2 to 4, New King James Version. You shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations which you shall dispossess served their gods, on the high mountains and on the hills, and under every green tree. And you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, and burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things. Deuteronomy 12, verses 29 to 31, New King James Version. When the Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you displace them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I also will do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods, for they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. God's command was to completely destroy all idols and places of false worship. This was not how the Lord God could be worshipped. These religions were so diametrically opposed to God and His holiness that they had to be completely destroyed and eradicated. Moses also warned the Canaanites not to be curious about their religions because idolatry was an abomination to the Lord. He is a...
Okay, I want to shine light on something real quick.
Moses also warned the Canaanites.
See that? There's a high place right there. That's where the angels is at. See that? They go up on these high places and deal with these angels. That's what we're looking at right here.
Not to be curious about their religions, because idolatry was an abomination to the Lord. He is a jealous God who refuses to share His glory. Deuteronomy 4, verse 24, New King James Version. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. Deuteronomy 5, verse 9, New King James Version. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me.
Okay.
Deuteronomy 6, verse 15, New King James Version. For the Lord your God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord your God be aroused against you and destroy you from the face of the earth. Deuteronomy 12, verse 5, New King James Version. But you shall seek the place where the Lord your God chooses, out of all your tribes, to put His name for His dwelling place, and there you shall go. Deuteronomy 12, verse 14, New King James Version. But in the place which the Lord chooses, in one of your tribes, there you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I command you. Take note of the specific references to a place in Deuteronomy 12, 5, and 11. God was implying that once Israel had settled in the land, He would have a place to dwell and worship. God's glory filled the tabernacle during Moses' time, and it was the place where Israel worshipped God. However, the temple would be built in the location chosen by God. When the temple was built and dedicated, the glory cloud descended and filled it. In 2 Chronicles 5 to 7, we see the fulfillment of Moses' words. Exodus 40, verse 34, New King James Version. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. 2 Chronicles 5, verses 13 and 14, New King James Version. Indeed, it came to pass, when the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, and praised the Lord, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endures forever, that the house of the Lord was filled with a cloud, so that the priests could not continue ministering because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of God. These verses contain beautiful New Testament truth. The Lord Jesus is our tabernacle. True worship for the believer is no longer a place, but a person. This is what Jesus taught the woman. Verse 14, New King James Version. Even so, the Lord.
Okay. Anybody get anything out of that? Okay. Okay. If nobody have no comments, I'm gonna go to second chapter 2 of Joshua and read that, and then we'll close out. I'm in Joshua chapter 2. Okay. It says, and it was in the 130th year of the life of Adam upon the earth that he again knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore a son in his likeness and in his image, and she called his name Seth, saying, because God has appointed me another seed in place of Abel, for Cain is slain him. And Seth lived 105 years, and he begat a son, and Seth called the name of his son Enos, saying, because in that time the sons of men began to multiply and to afflict their souls and their hearts by transgressing and rebelling against God. And it was in the days of Enos that the sons of men continued to rebel and transgress against God, to increase the anger of the Lord against the sons of men. And the sons of men went and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth. And in those days the sons of men made images of brass and iron, wood and stone, and they bowed down to serve them. And every man made his God, and they bowed down to them. And the sons of men forsook the Lord all the days of Enoch and his children. And the anger of the Lord was kindled on account of their works and the abomination which they did in the earth. And the Lord caused the waters of the river Gihon to overwhelm them, and he destroyed and consumed them, and he destroyed the third part of the earth. And notwithstanding this, the sons of men did not turn from their evil ways, and their hands were yet extended to do evil in the sight of the Lord. And in those days there was neither sowing nor reaping in the earth, and there was no food, for the sons of men and the famine was very great in those days. And the seed which they sowed in their days in the ground became thorns and thistles and briars. For from the days of Adam was the declaration concerning the earth of the curse of God, which he cursed the earth on account of the sins which Adam sinned for the Lord. Verse 9, and it was, when men continued to rebel and transgress against God, and to corrupt their ways, that the earth also became corrupt. And Enos lived 90 years and begot Canaan. And Canaan grew up, and he was 40 years old. And he became wise and had knowledge and skill in all wisdom. And he reigned. See that? He reigned. I mean, a king. What king? Melchizedek. Title. And he reigned over all the sons of men. And he led the sons of men to wisdom and knowledge. For Canaan was a very wise man and had understanding in all wisdom. And with his wisdom he ruled over spirits and demons. And Canaan knew by his wisdom that God would destroy the sons of men for having sinned upon the earth, and that the Lord would in the latter days bring upon them the waters of the flood. See, 13. And in those days Canaan wrote upon tables of stone what was to take place in the time to come, and he put them in his treasures. And Canaan reigned over the whole earth, and he turned some of the sons of men to the service of God. And when Canaan was 70 years old, he begot 3 sons and 2 daughters. Mahalah, and the second Enan, and the third married. And their sons were, See, and their sisters were Ada and Zillah. These are the 5 children Canaan had. The Canaan children of Canaan that were born to him. And Lamech, the son of Methuselah, became related to Canaan by marriage. And he took his 2 daughters for his wives. And Ada conceived and bore a son to Lamech, and she called his name Jabal. And she again conceived and bore a son and called his name Jubal. And Zillah, his sister, was born in those days, was barren in those days, and had no offspring. For in those days the sons of men began to trespass against God and to transgress the commandments which he had commanded to Adam, to be fruitful and multiply in the earth. And some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught that would render them barren, in order that they might change their figures, and whereby their beauty appearance might not fade. And when the sons of men caused some of these wives to drink, Zillah drank with them, and the childbearing women appeared abominable in the sight of their husbands as widows, while their husbands lived, for to the barren ones only they were attached. And in the end of days and years, Zillah became old, the Lord opened her womb, and she conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Tubal-Cain, saying, After I have withered away, have I obtained him from the Almighty God. And she conceived again and bore a daughter, and she called her name Naaman. And she said, After I have withered away, have I obtained pleasure and delight. And Lamech was old and advanced in years, and his eyes were dim that he could not see. And Tubal his son was leading him. And it was one day that Lamech went into the field. Tubal-Cain his son was with him. And while they were walking in the field, Cain, the son of Adam, advanced toward them. And Lamech was very old and could not see much. And Tubal his son was very young. And Tubal-Cain told his father to draw his bow, and with his arrow he smote Cain, who was yet far off, and he slew him, for he appeared to them as an animal. And the arrows entered Cain's body, although he was distant from them, and he fell to the ground and died. And the Lord requited Cain's evil to his wickedness, according to his wickedness, which he had done to his brother Abel, according to the words of the Lord which he had spoken. And it came to pass, when Cain had died, that Lamech and Tubal went to see the animal which they had slain, and they saw, and behold, Cain, their grandfather, was fallen dead upon the earth. And Lamech was very much grieved at having done this, and in clapping his hands together, he struck his son and caused his death. And the wives of Lamech heard that what Lamech had done, and they sought to kill him. Right? 33. And the wives of Lamech hated him from that day, because he slew Cain and Tubal-Cain. And the wives of Lamech separated from him and would not hearken to him in those days. And Lamech came to his wives and pressed them to listen to him about this matter. And he said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, O wives of Lamech, attend unto my words. For now you have imagined and said that I slew a man with my wounds, and a child with my stripes, for their having done no violence, but surely know that I am old and gray-headed, and that my eyes are heavy through age, and I did these things unknowingly. And the wife of Lamech listened to him in this manner, and they returned to him with the advice of their father Adam. But they bore no children to him from that day, knowing that God's anger was increasing in those days against the sons of men, to destroy them with the waters of the flood for their evil doings. Okay. So 37. And Mahalalel, son of Canaan, lived 65 years, and he begot Jared. And Jared lived 65 years and begot Enoch. Okay, so that was Jasher chapter 2. Did anybody get anything out of that they want to shine a light on? Okay. Well, I just wanted to shine a light on one thing. That was the fact that in verse 16, Ada and Zillah is come out of Adam's descendants. So what happened was Cain out of Cain's lineage, it was a Lamech. Adam got a Lamech in his lineage, and Cain got a Lamech in his lineage. But the Cain from Lamech's lineage married the two daughters from out of Adam's lineage. So if you look at verse, excuse me, God, you look at verse 13. In those days, Canaan wrote on tablets what was to take place in the time to come, and he put them in treasure. And Canaan reigned over the whole earth, and he turned some of the sons of men into the service of God. And when Canaan was 70 years old, he begot 3 sons and 2 daughters. Those 2 daughters was Ada and Zillah. So I'm gonna read that. That's in the book of Joshua. So I'm in King James now, right quick. And if you go to Genesis, go to Genesis chapter 2. Let me get it right quick. So you go to Genesis chapter 4, verse 16. This Cain descended, right? It says, Cain went out from the presence of the Lord to dwell in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Cain knew his wife. She conceived and bore Enoch. He built a city, called the name after the city, that's the name of his son, Enoch. And Enoch was barren. Unto Enoch was born Irad. Irad begot Methuselah. Methuselah begot Methuselah. Methuselah begot Lamech, right? Then you go to verse 19, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, the name of the other is Zillah. Those 2 girls come out of Adam's lineage. So Cain's son, Lamech, intermarried with Adam's descendants, Ada and Zillah. But they don't tell you that. See what I'm saying? They just say in verse 19, Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. But they don't tell you that they come out of Adam's lineage. Ain't that something?
That is. Wow.
Right. Ain't that something? And then you see that the sons of God is Cain's descendants. The sons of men. It's Cain's descendants, because it says that. Let me read that. Show that to you. We're gonna close out. So I'm in chapter 2 of Joshua, and it says, let me get it. It says, okay, let me find it. Give me a minute. Let me get it. Yeah, verse 5 says, chapter 2 of Joshua, verse 5 says that every man made his God, and they bowed down to them, and the sons of men, see that, forsook the Lord all the days of Enoch and his children. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against their works and the abomination which they did in the earth. And if you go to, so it's not Adam's descendants, these Cain descendants. sons of men. That's how you get Melchizedek. Those 10 men before the flood was teaching Cain's descendants and the other people on the earth how the way things go according to what the Most High gave them as a people. They was teaching them, but they rebelled against him. They rebelled against the Lord. And when they mean by rebelled against, during the time of Enoch, whoever was Melchizedek at the time, they rebelled against him. They didn't want to deal with him no more. So they went away and started sinning. So I was reading out of the book of Maccabees. I'm gonna read that right quick, show you what I'm talking about. This Cain descendants. Where's Maccabees? Let me get it. Okay. Yeah, here you go. So I'm in First Maccabees. I'm just gonna read a few verses. Came to pass after Alexander of Macedon, son of Philip, who had came from the land of Checham, had utterly defeated Darius, king of the Medes and Persians. He had reigned in his stead, as he had before reigned over Greece, and he waged many wars and captured fortresses, slaughtered the kings of the earth, and he made his way to the ends of the earth, and despoiled the multitude of nations. The whole earth was silent before him, and he became exalted, and his heart was uplifted. He mustered a very mighty army and ruled over the lands and rulers and heathens, and not over the Israelites, and they paid him tribute. Afterwards he fell sick and knew he was going to die, so he called his distinguished servants who had been brought up with him, divided his kingdom among them while he was still alive, and Alexander reigned 12 years when he died. Here we go right here. It's the precept. His servants succeeded him, each in his own dominion after his death, and they all put on crowns, as did their sons after them for many years, and they did much evil on the earth. That same thing we just saw in Joshua. So these Cain's descendants, these sons of men, Cain's descendants. Okay? All right? They didn't trick that off. Any comments before we close out? Anybody have nothing? Everybody good?
Was these the I'm in Genesis.
What's that?
Chapter 4. I'm in Genesis chapter 4.
Yeah, chapter 4.
Where it say at
starting at
16.
verse 16.
Huh?
Starting at verse 16. That's when Cain descended.
Okay.
Yeah. That's Cain descendants, and so that's the sons of men. So that's what that is. And also you have to understand in that same chapter 6. You got let it register. All I'm doing is sowing the seed. So Genesis chapter 6 says, and it came to pass when the men began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born unto them. See that? So these men is the sons of men. These Cain's, the daughters of Cain, started multiplying on earth. Because these angels, the sons of God, see what I'm saying? These sons of God, they can't get to Adam's descendants because they protected by angels. They can't get to them. So they came down to the daughters of men, to Cain descendants.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right. So with that being said, I'm gonna hit this here. Like I was saying, be on Clubhouse on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock and Friday nights at 8 o'clock. I see everybody on Tuesday night for Israelite advanced Bible study. So we say shalom. I see everybody on Tuesday.
Shalom.
Okay, shalom.